Hi there, it's Max from prismatic.org, and today I'm talking about fitness. I want to talk about the cause of off days in training and how you can help reduce them, thus increasing your effectiveness of your training and have more good days overall, obviously getting better results over time as well. I've been training for 10 years solidly, more or less, with exception to a couple of months which I took off because of injury, but other than that I've been training for more than 10 years now, and hopefully wherever you are in your training, whether you're a complete newbie or whether you have years and years of experience, you can relate to this kind of feeling of having off days, but also sometimes with training you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole. You feel like every time something seems to be going off the rails a little bit, you're trying new things to sort of put things right, increasing your sodium or eating fewer carbs, maybe eating more carbs, and just trying every little detail you can think of. Reading a post on the internet which says, oh well, it's obviously, maybe you aren't getting enough vitamin B12, and so you try that for a week, and it seems sometimes no matter what you do, you're still going to have off days sometimes. And even when you seem to be doing nothing right, you have great days. Now what's that all about? Well, the truth is that there's a billion reasons why you might be having off days in the gym, and the body is never the same twice. It never feels the same twice, and it does, to some extent, because of this complexity, seem to almost do what it's going to do no matter what. But of course some people have cracked this. Many people have cracked this, at least to a workable extent, because hey, athleticism is a career path for many people. There's a lot of science behind all this. There's a lot of people out there who do get it. There's also a lot of people who may have a lot of good results to show for it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have a perfect understanding of what's really going on. Of course not. Most pro bodybuilders are not scientists. Most amateur bodybuilders are certainly not scientists, and often they get things right at the same time, and by kind of irrespective of not quite understanding things right. It might be that they think that it's all about getting really angry in the gym and training your ass off, and they might forget many other important things which they're also doing, but not necessarily realize that the reasoning behind their results is a combination of all these things. And so in this case, result doesn't necessarily mean you fully understand what you're talking about. It usually means that if you imitate that person, you will probably get similar results, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're coming at you with is necessarily a perfect model which you can apply to your own style and flavor of training. So what I want to do in today's video is really summarize what I think are the three main factors behind our performance day in, day out in the gym. Forget about all the minutiae. These are the three things that you really need to be thinking about. These are the three factors which will have the most impact on your ability to perform. So I think that's a nice segue into this kind of scene that we can probably all relate to. When we're new to the gym, no matter what our field is, all of us at some point have probably looked up to someone older and or more experienced with greater results than us and said, hey, can I train in? Or hey, can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? And more often than not, that person will get us on a bench press, slam on way more weight than we're capable of lifting, and be like, come on mate, it's all in the mind, you can do it. And of course it's not all in the mind, right? A lot of it is in the body, and that person is often misguided. This is no one in particular, but this is kind of a caricature we can all relate to, I think. That they think that the reason someone is not progressing in the gym, or the fact that they haven't progressed as far as them, is because they're simply not working hard enough. This is probably the simple or the most common sort of misconception that most people fall for. And you see these guys pretending to be bodybuilders all the time, doing bicep curls but not doing any chin-ups. What's that about? Or doing leg curls but not doing any squats. Again, what's that about? So if we're going to sort of move forward with a simplified but yet workable model for what really impacts our performance day to day, and therefore what we really need to focus on in order to maximize our results, the first one would be the nervous system. So to say it's all in the mind, it's not all in the mind, but the mind has a lot to do with it. That's true. So first of all, how well is your nervous system firing? And within that, of course, are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough rest? Because that's one of the main ways in which your nervous system will recover from training. But also it's worth looking at the kind of training you're doing, because the classic bodybuilder style training, going super high intensity, that doesn't work for most people in the beginning, and it's far better to work on not just that, but also building up the nervous system, getting used to the movement. This is how you develop good form, this is how you develop strength, and this is how you then create the currency of strength in order to, which you can then build on later. I mean, do you then want to become big? Do you want to work on hypertrophy, or do you want to work on speed, power, performance? You know, it really helps if you have a solid baseline first of which to work with, and the nervous system is often the first thing that will adapt. It's not just all about muscle size, you know, it's not just about muscle strength or the number of muscle fibers or how, you know, strong those fibers are. It's really about nervous system development. And this is probably the first place which a lot of people go wrong. You know, they assume that it's all about the muscles, it's all about how strong your muscles are. So if you're having off days, the first place I would look is how well are you training your nervous system? Are you looking at the total volume of weight lifted over a course of a week? Are you simply doing enough volume? A wise man once said to me when I was first learning how to squat, he said that if your form is suffering, deload until the form gets perfect and then build up the weight. You'll get to where you want to be faster by working that way. And that means dropping your ego sometimes, not necessarily always just lifting the heaviest weights you can, but getting that form perfect. And I truly believe this is one of the biggest factors in ultimately the results, not only how well you perform, but if you really care about how you look. It's a tough truth for a lot of guys to swallow, and girls of course as well. You know, the better you form, the better you'll look. And a lot of us skip that because we're too intent on moving up and up and up the weights. It's actually counterproductive sometimes. Training our nervous system can only take us so far, psyching ourselves up can only take us so far. Ultimately, the nervous system is like a filter, right? If that's how strong we are, we don't necessarily want to be lifting here, we want to be able to fulfill our potential, but what it will never do is it will never push us beyond that. And so you also need to work on our actual physical limits, you know, our physical performance. And this is what, you know, the overload principle is all about. It's about increasing the intensity of what you're doing, increasing the volume of what you're doing. So making sure you're always trying to do new things and achieving progress. I think to this end, it helps to think of progress not just as a linear thing, not just as, say, you know, the amount of weight you can lift for one rep, or indeed the number of reps you can lift with a certain weight. But my training really reached new heights when I was thinking in more facets than just intensity. You've got to be working all these things at once. You know, if you're getting tired of lifting really heavy, or if you're getting tired of doing 10 plus reps, is there some other way in which you can progress? I mean, for example, if you know your 1 rep max is 150, and you can also do 5 reps with 130, you know, is it time you started doing, maybe you want to try 120 for 7 or 8? And the third primary factor in our performance in the gym is how well fueled up we are. So of course, no matter how strong we are, no matter how psyched up we are, no matter how well recovered we are, if we're not fueled up properly, then we're still going to feel lethargic. If we are lacking energy, ATP in our muscles, in our cells, then it doesn't matter how, you know, strong we are, it doesn't matter how well slept we are, we physically won't have the energy to lift. So there's a theme here in that we're always battling, working with the rules of physics. Yeah, I mean, we've got to look after our physical circumstances and take practical steps to put ourselves in the best condition to train, and then we need to show up and work hard. But no amount of hard work is going to counteract the fact that you're underfueled or that you're underrested. So this final component, fuel, how to work with this? Well, of course, you need to make sure you're eating enough. I mean, eating plenty. If you want to feel energetic in the gym, if you want to grow, if you physically need to grow, you need to be taking in extra fuel. And you also need the energy to train. But there is an extra point here, and that is that carbohydrate is misunderstood. I think a lot of people think that we need carbohydrate, and it is true that it is our body's preferred fuel source. But preferred by the body doesn't necessarily mean it's always for the best. You know, I mean, carbohydrate also leads to an insulin spike. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. It is easy to put on weight when you eat a lot of carbs. And one thing I found in my training was quite strange is that I used to be really bound by how fueled up I was. Like, this used to be a big factor in how well I performed in the gym. I mean, if I went to the gym on an empty stomach, it guaranteed it was going to be a really lethargic, bad session. But when I did a few months of ketosis, so in other words, when I dropped carbs pretty much completely from my diet, what usually happens is your body switches to fat burning, so the state of ketosis, after just a few days. But there's a second layer to ketosis, and that is that over the course of several weeks, maybe even months, your body becomes more what's known as Ketoadapted, which is where it develops more of the appropriate hormones for actually breaking down fat and using fat for fuel. And I noticed that after several weeks, my body started performing better under ketosis. Not only that, I became much better at performing on an empty stomach, when tired, hungover, it does happen sometimes. And even though I'm now living in Malaysia and carbohydrate is everywhere, I eat rice pretty much every day at the moment. But even when I work out on an empty stomach, or even when I go for a long time without eating, I still, these days, find that I can perform much better in the gym in spite of not having any carbohydrate. And my personal hypothesis, feel free to, correct me guys, if anyone out there knows more about this than I do, but I think it's because my body is better at burning fat, or better at utilizing fat for fuel these days. Certainly how it feels. Either way, practicing ketosis is very beneficial for the body. There's all kinds of benefits still being researched nonetheless, but I can speak from personal experience that I feel really fired up on it once you get over the initial hump, the keto flu. So definitely worth pushing through with that. So first, just to summarize then, the three primary factors which determine how you feel and how effective you train on a day-to-day basis are, firstly, your nervous system, your CNS, how well geared up that is for whatever it is you're doing, how geared up your body is to actually perform, your physical limits, your performance, so muscle fibers, your fitness, and thirdly, your fuel, so how well fed you are and how much energy is physically available to your muscles. So if any one of these is letting you down, that's going to be the determinant of your training. For example, even if you're really fueled up and you're really fired up and ready to go, you're still subject to the physical limits that your muscles can actually put up with. So sometimes it's not all in the mind, it's also in the body. But on the other hand, even if you've had a massive breakfast, right, you're really fueled up and you're really strong, but you just can't really be bothered today, and you're feeling just a bit like lazy, well, guess what? You're not going to perform that well in the gym. You're not going to have the motivation and the mental energy to go through with it. So, and lastly, of course, even if you're really strong and you're really fired up, if you haven't got the physical energy to go, if your muscles don't have the ATP that they need, then you're subject to physical limits of how fueled up you are, and that's going to also take a toll on your training. There you go. So in summary, guys, how you feel day to day in the gym is largely a component of those three things. There are a billion reasons, like I said at the very beginning of this video, but those three things are a pretty workable model for trying to understand how we can get our training back on track day to day, and what it is we need to work on in order to maximize the results of our training. So I hope that was useful, guys. I shall chat to you next time.